Hi, welcome to another knowledge sharing module from the CXps community. This week, knowledge sharing module number 12 is Andrea Masajewski, and she is bringing to us a very important message about the role of pricing, budgeting, and billing in your CX program. Most of us are afraid to talk about money. It's one of the last things we want to talk about. In fact, we hate talking about it, and yet it's such an important and critical part in our client's journey. So Andrea is going to walk us through how to handle that and address that in a very CX positive way. Before I turn this over to Andrea, let me take a moment and just thank all of our sponsors. Thank you so very much for being a part of our success this year. Please take some time to check these sponsors out. And now I'd like to bring you Andrea, and stick around for some closing notes at the end of this session. Thank you.
Welcome to It's All About the Benjamins, the role of pricing, budgeting, and billing in your CX program. Pricing, budgeting, fees, billing are arguably the most critical components of CX, yet they're often the most underdeveloped, evaded, labeled as back office problems. This, to me, means it's the most significant opportunity to engender loyalty, develop trust, and provide the foundation needed for your CX program to be successful. Welcome. I'm Andrea Mack. I'm the founder of Prequel, which is a growth consultancy firm out of Chicago. I have close to 20 years of experience in marketing, business development, and client engagement programs for both B2B and B2C spaces. There's obviously a million things we can talk about relative to profitability, fees, staffing, resources, etc. But for today's purposes, we're going to spend our time talking about three key components tied to the exchange of money in a client relationship: pricing, budgeting, and invoicing. I think it's quickly important to touch on a few foundational components before we dive in. One, I believe, along with Peter Drucker, that the purpose of a business is to attract and retain a customer. So I want to take a minute and share with you what I believe experience means. There's a million definitions about experience, and I believe that there are 6 key components to a successful CX program: onboarding, engagement, communication, appreciation, feedback, and of course, disruptions. The exchange of money in a client relationship is a given. It's going to happen no matter what, while a lot of those other pillars are optional. This means we can control what we can in this piece of an engagement program. Money also produces uncomfortable feelings. Those conversations are often not strategic, and they're just relegated as a quick bypass back office problem. It also is something that expands the lifespan of a client. So money and pricing and billing are not just when a client is new, but it's a given, and it's throughout the long-term relationship that you have with your client. And the higher the sensitivity is, means we have the biggest opportunity to delight our clients. There are a lot of things that go into money on your firm side, but today, as we break down these 3 different components, I want you to look at it from a customer's experience and what they see and feel. Clients assess value at points throughout an experience with us, and we communicate that value throughout other various points, namely proposals, check-ins, invoices, and that's what we're going to focus on. If you're able to capture and communicate the value that you are providing your clients, you outwin competition, you'll grow those same clients, and they'll be incredibly loyal. So first up, pricing. Pricing is the process of determining what we get in exchange for our services. It's so important to get this right because it usually comes up before someone is officially your client or at the very early stages of their experience with you and your company. This is where you give your word, and in exchange, you get credibility. Also, it should be mentioned that internally, it's the metric tied to production, profitability, staffing, and often compensation. Pricing is about delivering that value. Is what I'm getting worth more than what I'm giving? It's your job to help your clients understand what's at stake. Let's take a step back and talk about the psychology of pricing. Clients buy emotionally and then justify rationally. That means they buy on their gut, they buy on their emotional reasoning, and then they figure out the reasons to justify their purchase. So it's your job to speak to both sides of that. There are different types of arrangements in pricing, and when you understand how your client is buying, whether emotionally or logically, it's your job to figure out what arrangement fits best. Some fee and billing arrangements to consider include project-based, flat fee, hourly, success or outcome-based, a hybrid approach, a retainer, and I'm sure there's a bunch other that I'm not thinking of right now. Once you figure out how your clients are buying, you can scope your pricing according to that. There are a couple of ways that I suggest or ideas I have on how you can make a bigger impact with your pricing. One, always, always, always give options when it comes to pricing. Give them something to choose from. There's a psychology around building a confidence of your client being able to choose how they'd like to pay you. And then consider how you want to frame those offerings around what your desired outcome is. Two, leverage transparency early and often. When clients have access to how you're forming your fees, how you're billing, how the sausage is made, if you will, they don't have the opportunity to make information up. And I'm willing to guarantee that your competitors are less transparent. So whenever the opportunity arises, be open, transparent, and let them get involved in the pricing. Three, negotiate guarantees instead of discounts. In today's marketplace, clients are often looking for a quick top of the line discount. That is a race to the bottom, in my opinion. And so whenever you're asked for a discount or whenever you have the opportunity, negotiate a guarantee instead of a discount. Next up, let's talk about budgeting. Why is budgeting important? Budgeting is important because if pricing is where you get your credibility, budgeting is where you gain reliability. It's important because this is really where you start to deliver on your brand promise in what you do and what you say. As value was discussed before, and it's about the relationship of delivering value to your clients, this is where you're able to demonstrate and outline the value that you're giving them. So let's talk a little bit about the fundamentals. You should be developing a statement of work, a project plan, something that outlines what you're providing at different fee points, whether that's based on a project fee or a flat fee. There should be some sort of organized statement of work. This will allow you to outline the value that you're offering, as well as handle things like scope creep. Scope creep happens, changes happen, things evolve, projects evolve, but this allows you to deal with them as needed while maintaining communication and tying it back to your original agreements. It also reduces uncertainty. When you have a strong budget that outlines what you agreed upon and what you didn't agree upon, it'll remove uncertainty and anxiety from the relationship for the client and probably for you as well. This becomes the primary way that you can educate your customers on what's going into an engagement or a project on your side. And it allows them to see and feel the value provided, and it gives you the opportunity to speak to that. So, in addition to making sure that your statement of work outlines and correlates directly to the financial commitment, it's also important to design a template and stick to it. Don't change up your templates, don't make changes to it as you go along. It's really important that you get it right up front and use it for reporting purposes. It should include any appropriate time, phases, anything that correlates to a budget. It should also indicate, as I previously mentioned, what's not included in the budget or any carve-outs. These budgets can also be very helpful for reconciliations and working within estimates as you're delivering the work. So 3 ideas to implement or opportunities for you to maximize the CX here are to 1, build the budget together with your client. When you invite a client in to build the various stages and what they expect to pay, it's a really great opportunity for you to make sure that there's expectations are managed and that your delivery of services align with their objectives. 2, utilize this budget as a way to incorporate check-ins and requests for feedback throughout a project. So you don't need to wait till a project is complete to send a survey or invite someone for a client interview to ask how we're doing. When you send the budget reconciliation or some sort of reconciliation to your statement of work throughout the project, it gives you the opportunity to invite feedback in the various phases and adjust appropriately. It also neutralizes any bad feelings. And third, it's really important to include ideas on ways to save money in the future or ways to improve the process moving forward. Often we save these things to the end of the project, and when you utilize a strong communication tool like a budget, it allows you to incorporate it into a conversation. Next up, we'll talk about billing and invoicing. This is probably one of the most underutilized areas of CX, and it's your biggest opportunity to tie your work directly to your customers' objectives. It's also a regular touch point. For many of us, and for professional service firms, it's often a monthly touch point or a quarterly touch point, or sometimes more often than that. So it's incredibly critical to get it right and to leverage it. It also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate that you understand what your client's KPIs are and to tie that directly to the experience that they're receiving. So usually that means ease, consistency, relevancy, transparency, and a personal touch. You can use the invoice to speak to each of those things. Is it easy to understand? Is it easy to pay you? Is it consistent with the budgets you've been providing? Is it relevant to the work you've been doing? Are you open and clear about the team that's working on your project? It becomes very easy, simple communication tool to outline KPIs and values. A couple of things to keep in mind. But invoices should be clear with no surprises. They should be easy to understand, and they should directly reflect what you've discussed and what you've been providing them periodically. A couple of ideas or opportunities and ways to maximize your invoicing process. 1, utilize a no charge line for anything that you've done that you're not charging them for. Often I find that we as providers provide extras and value and extra time and all sorts of things that aren't being captured. I think there's an added effect here that you can maximize and leverage when you include your no charge line. I would encourage you to use it sparingly. You don't want 100 different lines saying no charge or comp or investment, but it's important that they see how much time you're investing in a relationship. 2, super simple. Make a pre-invoice call or email. Something simple like, I looked over your bill, I'm about to send it over. There should be no surprises on it. Thanks again for the opportunity. It's a 1-line phone call, voicemail, text message, email, and it sends a big message that 1, you're reviewing the bills, and 2, that there's some consistency and that it matches what you've talked about all along. So simple way that you can mandate across your company, and it has a lot of transparency, consistency, and personal impact. 2, consider including impact statements. What did your client get out of the work that they've done with you in the last quarter, project, month, etc.? How has your work created an impact for them? Did you win with them? Did your work help them increase a particular client relationship? Was a project successful? Did they gain any value? It's really important that you use the invoices to highlight those wins. And it's something that most of us don't do, and it's such a huge opportunity. 3, never underestimate that your invoice is a piece of marketing collateral. How can you include simple things like where to engage with you, timely pieces of wisdom, introduce other team members, introduce other clients or projects or news, drive them to your website or your socials. Don't forget that your invoice is a regular piece of marketing collateral and one that you're sure your client is reading. So 3 ways to make sure that you are maximizing not only your pricing, but also budgets and statement of work and your invoicing and billing process. This is the point where if we were in a live conference setting, we would probably have an open discussion to talk about all of your questions and things that pop up. We won't be together until January, in which case at that time, we can discuss any questions you have that struck you in this presentation. The most common questions that I receive are, what do you do when things don't go as planned? This is also another huge opportunity to invest into your CX program. There will certainly be curveballs, and how you handle them is really important. Another common question is, how do you implement some of these things? What happens when, where do we start? Do we start with the invoices? Do we start with pricing? Do we start with proposals? How do you actually implement them across the board? And I'm happy to share examples of how I've worked with clients to do this. And the last most common question that I typically receive or that gets brought up is, how does this benefit your business? So as you're working throughout the internal structure of your company, where can you identify benefits and why you should invest in these 3 components in your CX program? Why is investing in a reformatting of your invoice critical to client engagement and to profitability for your company? So I'd be happy to address any of these questions, anything that popped up in this presentation, or your own war stories of how this has impacted your company. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or thoughts. I'm reachable by email at andrea@theprequel.com, or feel free to shoot me a text message or find me on socials. Thanks again for watching today.
Andrea, thank you so much for tackling such a tough topic and doing it with such great insight. Really appreciate that. Good lessons all of us can learn from. I'm sure many of you also have questions from Andrea. And so I invite you to join us this Friday, January 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You'll have 30 minutes to ask her all your questions and then another 30 minutes of roundtable discussion with your peers to talk all manner of topics related to client and employee experience. If you're not yet a member of the CXps community, you can join us at clientexperience.org. That's how you get invitations to these members only live events. So hope to see you there. And Andrea, look forward to seeing you on Friday.